You are listening to Travel with the Backpacking Housewife podcast. I'm your host, Janice Horton, an ex-housewife, an empty nester, and normally a nomadic world traveller who loves to discuss dreamy destinations all around the world and, in particular, the pros and cons of midlife and senior travel and about making the most of opportunities to travel in retirement, or what I like to call the golden age of travel. Welcome to episode 14. This is part 2 and a continuation of last week's podcast, in which I'm sharing with you my 10 greatest travel experiences. Trying to whittle down all the amazing travel experiences that I've had during the almost 8 years since the backpacking husband and I decided to sell everything we owned to travel the world, down to just 10 greatest travel experiences, has been a delightful exercise in travel nostalgia after living in just one place and travelling nowhere due to the pandemic. I did a brainstorming session that resulted in a list of dozens of wonderful experiences and so many fabulous memories from all of my favourite and amazing places that we've travelled that are now held so deeply and so affectionately in my heart. But this list isn't about places. This list is about my 10 greatest travel experiences, and it's all about feelings and emotions rather than locations and destinations. Last week I shared with you my experience of volunteering on a turtle conservation project on a tropical island off Malaysia, and my mind-blowingly fabulous close-up encounter with orangutans in the wild in Borneo, and my adventures in Egypt that had me so excited I burst into tears. And I shared with you my secret place in the Eastern Caribbean, a tiny tropical island that I've returned to many times simply because I've never really wanted to leave. And if you haven't listened into that podcast yet, you'll find it by skipping back to last week and see it listed as episode 13. This week, I'm sharing 5 more fabulous experiences with you. Temple bagging in Cambodia, including Angkor Wat. My experience of taking the Northern Borneo Express, a steam train through the jungles and towns of Borneo. Island hopping on the Andaman Sea in Thailand from Krabi down to Langkawi, Malaysia, and taking an old and very slow train through Thailand from Chiang Mai to Bangkok with my very best friend. And finally, an incredible bucket list qualifying adventure, island hopping in the Seychelles. Exploring world-famously beautiful beaches, finding a small island of giant tortoises, and tracking down the largest nut in the world, the exclusive Coco de Mer. But as with last week's greatest travel experiences, you should know that they're not listed in any particular order. And this is because when I was there, experiencing these things, I knew that without any doubt in my mind, I was living in a very special moment, and in a unique time in my life that I would forever hold special. And that's certainly what's qualified them to be on this list. So here we go, my final 5 greatest travel experiences to date. Exploring Angkor Wat in Cambodia. I'm not a religious person, but I will admit to being spiritual. And I absolutely love an old temple. So, given an opportunity to spend a week in Cambodia to explore Angkor Wat, the largest religious structure in the world, I was beyond thrilled and excited. Angkor Wat was built in the first half of the 12th century, making Angkor Wat almost 900 years old. It was named a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1992. Angkor Wat lies 5.5 kilometres, that's about 3.5 miles, north of the town of Siem Reap, and it is the most famous temple at the Angkor Archaeological Park, a park that stretches over 400 square kilometres and contains some of the most famous temples in the world, including Tar Prom, the incredible location of the Lara Croft movie, and the Bayon, iconic temple of many faces. There are also literally dozens more stunning ancient temples to be explored outside of the park. We flew from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia to Siem Reap, Cambodia. We booked a hotel on the recommendation of a friend, and by far the best and most affordable way to get around to see all the sights and to avoid too much walking in the incredible heat is to hire a tuk-tuk taxi and a driver for the day. Your driver will take you to the park office to buy your tickets, whisk you around to all of the temples, and wait patiently for you while you explore the sites at your own leisure and your own pace. We actually hired a tuk-tuk and wonderfully friendly driver from just outside our hotel for several days. We visited Angkor Wat on our very first day, and then we saw a magical medley of temples around the whole archaeological park on day 2 and 3. I was blessed by a monk, several times actually, and I danced with some Khmer dancing girls, and it was incredible. It was also awe-inspiring to be surrounded by all these incredible and intensely spiritual temple sites, some of them in the middle of the steamy jungle, with their giant tree roots growing through the centuries-old stone structures. We followed this with a pool and spa day to relax and recover from our exhaustion and from all the walking. Then we continued on our explorations with our tuk-tuk and driver on a trip out to a war museum. We finalised our incredible week and what felt to me like a magical time in Cambodia by experiencing the floating village. Taking a boat out to see how a whole community lives on a lake in floating houses with floating shops and even animals and chicken coops on rafts is an incredible sight and an experience that I heartily recommend to you. We even had our lunch at a floating restaurant. Our experience of Angkor Wat and the Angkor Archaeological Park and the sites of Siem Reap in Cambodia was truly wonderful. It's such a special place, and the Cambodian people are genuinely kind and friendly to visitors. It was a unique and memorable time that I'll forever treasure in my heart. My next greatest travel experience was travelling through jungle on the North Borneo Railway steam train. We had the most amazing travel experience travelling into the heart of Borneo on a fabulous and romantic old steam train, reliving memories of a bygone era of old colonial times. We were greeted on the station platform by friendly staff dressed formally in the colonial-style uniforms, complete with a pith-style hat. The train, an old Vulcan steam engine manufactured by the Vulcan Foundry Limited in Lancashire, UK, is one of the last of an entire fleet of steam locomotives that has travelled through Borneo since the 1880s. The carriages have been refurbished inside and out and have a gleaming cream and teal green livery. Inside, the carriages are furnished with upholstered seating and oak wood tables and lamps from a vintage colonial era, providing a truly authentic and nostalgic experience of steam train travel in the early 1900s. We were given travel passports as we boarded our carriage, and they were stamped at every town that we stopped at along the way. We took our seats, and it was exhilarating to hear the departure whistle blow and to feel the train start to move out of the station. Once on our way, we had the benefit of a fragrant breeze blowing in through the train's open windows as we chugged along the coastal route, catching glimpses of the South China Sea. En route, a journey of some 36 miles, we also went through villages and tunnels and steamy jungles. We passed temples, rice fields, plantations, and we waved at cheering people as we chugged along. It's a half-day trip to ride from Kota Kinabalu to Papar, stopping off at several towns, hopping off at stations along the way, sightseeing and shopping in local markets, and engaging with the friendly people, and to enjoy all the unique and special places all along the rail route. The North Borneo Railway runs 2 weekly return departures on a Wednesday and a Saturday all year round. The train leaves at 9:30 in the morning from Tanjung Aru station at Kota Kinabalu, and shortly after your departure you're served a continental breakfast and a traditional tiffin lunch on the way back. Our fabulous trip on board the North Borneo Express was a travel experience I will never forget. Next on my list of greatest travel experiences is island hopping from Thailand to Malaysia, and it was one of the most memorable and greatest travel journeys that I've ever experienced. We travelled by various types of boats and spent a month slowly backpacking and tropical island hopping all the way along the islands off Thailand's Andaman Sea. We began by taking our trip on a long-tail boat from Krabi, on the mainland to Railay Beach. Railay Beach is only accessible by boat, and we stayed for 2 nights. From Railay, we moved on to Koh Lanta, the island of sea gypsies and the largest island in the chain, and we stayed there for a couple of weeks. It was all about slow travel. From Koh Lanta, Koh meaning island, we moved south, spending an assortment of nights on small tropical islands, Koh Ngai and on to Kradan, stopping off to explore the Emerald Cave at Koh Mook, and all by longtail boat. But then by bigger boat for the distance involved, moving on to Koh Bulon. Some of the islands on this archipelago are more popular with tourists than others, due to the variety of accommodations, budget, mid-range or luxury, and of course availability. As accommodation is usually limited, it's always best to book ahead, especially in high season, which is from November through to March. We travelled in November, and I booked all but one of our hotels using booking.com, except for our stay on Koh Bulon, which had to be booked directly with the hotel, and I think for this reason, not many people seem to know about this island. When our boat arrived at Koh Bulon, dropping us off in the shallow water next to the arc of white sand beach with a backdrop of verdant jungle and swaying palm trees, we were the only ones to get off, and we were amused to see that everyone on the boat was in jaw-dropped awe at seeing this island. "Oh wow, where is this?" we heard some people ask, and we just replied, "Well, this is paradise." We left Koh Bulon after 4 nights, and we travelled on by speedboat to the border island of Koh Lipi, where immigration is a hut on the beach, to reach our final destination of Langkawi, Malaysia. We explored the island of Langkawi for a week before flying on to the city of Kuala Lumpur. Travelling from one paradise island to the next, arriving by traditional longtail boat or motorboat, and mostly being dropped straight onto the beach, or as close as the boat could get to the shoreline, which usually meant us climbing out into thigh-deep, crystal-clear and bathwater warm water with our backpacks held high as we waded ashore. The few hotels on these islands are on the beach, set back under palm trees amidst fragrant tropical gardens. There are palm-thatched tiki bars on the beach, and the views are of clear blue water lapping white sand beaches, with sandbanks a little way out revealed by low tides, and a horizon line littered with giant, majestic limestone rocks sticking up from the sea, green with tropical vegetation, and breathtaking to behold, often resembling the shapes of animals and birds. If you ever dreamed of an authentic tropical island hopping holiday, then this is absolutely it. Next, it's Chiang Mai to Bangkok, by old train and with my very best friend. While I was living in Thailand on the island of Koh Tao, my best friend came out from the UK on holiday for a couple of weeks, and as she has pale skin and red hair, being on the beach all day wasn't really going to be her thing. So we decided to leave the island for a week by ferry to travel first to Koh Samui, where we could fly north to Chiang Mai, where it would be cooler and there would be lots of sightseeing and temple bagging to do in the ancient walled city. We had a truly fabulous and memorable time in Chiang Mai, and when it was time to leave, we decided that instead of taking the 1-hour flight back to the coast, we'd take the train instead. I informed my dear and somewhat sceptical friend that we would be taking an interesting and authentically Thai journey on an old iconic train, and that it would be a great experience. Little did I know that it would be certainly authentic to the extreme, that the 12 hours of seeing the sunrise in Chiang Mai to seeing the sun setting over Bangkok would actually seem like forever, that the toilet on the train would soon stink out the whole carriage, and the lunch provided to us would be a green Thai curried fish head, complete with its bulging eyes. But what we both knew straight away, from the first moment that we boarded that early morning train in Chiang Mai, was that we would be talking and laughing about that incredible journey for the rest of our lives. It's actually a journey that can no longer be replicated, because the train that now runs from Chiang Mai to Bangkok station a journey that took us 12 hours, has now been replaced by a modern and more luxuriously appointed express train. You can find out more about the current journey, train times and how to book from seat61.com. The rolling stock before then that we had experienced was an old train originally imported from Vietnam, with original box-style carriages and hard, straight-back vinyl seats with aircon provided by a ceiling fan, if you were lucky. Also, the arrival station at Bangkok is now, or soon to be, diverted away from the old and architecturally magnificent Hulampongong station to the ultra-modern brand-new Bang Sue terminal. So looking back on our iconic and authentic 12-hour Thai train travelling adventure on that old, slow and rattling train that wasn't the most comfortable journey I've ever taken, really was the most memorable way of travelling through Thailand with my best friend that I could ever have experienced. Finally, on my top 10 greatest travel experiences, we've got another island hopping adventure, and this time in Seychelles. The islands of the Seychelles are in the Indian Ocean, off the coast of Africa, and of course these islands are a tropical dream destination, high on a bucket list for many of us. Except our trip to Seychelles happened quite by chance. Having sold our home and our cars and our possessions a year or so before, we had been travelling the world, but had headed back to the UK for a friend's summer wedding. Our flight from Central America via the USA had brought us back 2 weeks before the wedding day. So after we got ourselves kitted out for the wedding, we were looking for somewhere to go from the UK in the meantime, to fill in those 2 weeks. And we were particularly looking for a last-minute booking. So we checked internet sites and airline schedules for discounted deals. We found 2 seats on a return flight to Mahé, Seychelles for 2 weeks at an amazingly affordable price because it was leaving the very next day. We booked it and then we looked to book our first night's accommodation on booking.com. And our plan was to arrive, have a couple of days to relax and get our bearings and to properly arrange to travel and island hop around the islands. There are in fact 115 islands in the Seychelles, and we only had 2 weeks to explore, so we knew we had to be selective. On our wish list was visiting the world-famously beautiful beaches, like the one at Anse Source d'Argent on La Digue, seeing the iconic sights like the legendary coco de mer, a giant nut only found on the island of Praslin in the Seychelles, and then to see the giant Aldebra tortoises that roam freely on the tiny island of Curios. Getting over to Praslin Island from the main island of Mahé involved taking a large modern catamaran ferry boat. I have to tell you that the sea was rough, and when we did the crossing I felt horribly seasick throughout the 75-minute journey. I sorted this by making sure to take seasick tablets ahead of the return journey. Once on the island of Praslin, we found it quite easy to hire a driver and a car for the day and to explore the island. Our driver took us all around and to see the famous Coco de Mer, of course. We were also able to take day trip boats from Praslin to many of the other islands. We spent a truly amazing 2 weeks in Seychelles, our experiences including exploring the island's tropical jungle and white sand beaches, as well as taking time for days off to a life of scuba diving and snorkeling and just to take things easy, soaking up the sun, working on our tans, and swimming in the turquoise ocean and in our luxurious hotel pool. Our island hopping experience in Seychelles was both memorable and truly great. Do you have a list of greatest travel experiences to date, or are you still at the planning stage? Do train journeys have a place in your great experiences list? Do you have a bucket list? Which one of my 10 greatest experiences had the greatest affinity with you? Do get in touch and let me know. You can email me through the contact page on my website at thebackpackinghousewife.com, or you can get in touch through my social media channels. I'm on Facebook as The Backpacking Housewife. I'm on Instagram as Janice Horton Writer. And if you're on Twitter, please do tweet me to tell me about your travel plans for this year or for the near future. at Janice Horton. That's JANICEHORTON. I also realise, now that I've collated this list of my 10 greatest travel experiences to date, that I haven't actually written full posts for my website on most of these yet. Well, I do know that I will definitely want to write about and to expand upon each of these greatest experiences with you in much more detail, and so that I can show you lots of my photos on the website at thebackpackinghousewife.com at some point in the very near future. So do look out for new posts, and while you're on my website, please do subscribe to my mailing list for newsy travel updates by email just once a month. And come and travel with me here on Travel with the Backpacking Housewife podcast. Do subscribe and follow for inspiring and informative new episodes each week, in which I'll be discussing ways to plan for and to prioritise travel and adventure in our lives and in our new future, in what is set to become a new and golden age of travel.